All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mr. Eten and Mr. Sugerman here with Beyond the Podcast. On today's show, we have one of our students, Junior, Nick Jones.
Junior.
Welcome, Nick. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. It's Friday. Mr. Sugerman, how you doing?
Doing great. Happy to be here. Our first ever podcast. We've been thinking about this for a while and couldn't think of a better first guest to have on. So welcome, Nick, and let's do it. Let's jump right in, Mr. Eden.
Let's do it. Now, Nick, like Mr. Sugarman was just saying, we were so excited when you sent us this mock draft video yesterday. So to fill everybody in, you created a mock draft video for the first round of the NFL draft, about 12 minutes long. Tell us what gave you the idea to make the video and what effort went into making the video.
Well, we're all quarantined right now, so I needed something to do with my time. So I decided to watch college football because I've always loved college football. And then doing that, the draft was coming up and the college football players were bound to get picked. So I decided to try and figure out who would go where. And, I was mildly successful, but it was a lot of fun watching and, analyzing. So.
How much tape did you watch on each of these players?
I watched a lot. I'm not sure how much, but I know I was at least I spent multiple days where I would probably skip homework to watch college football.
We'll edit that part out, so
okay.
You hear that. But
well, the good news is with remote learning, you have all 24 hours in a day to get your work done.
Yeah,
doing it during the work day, but we know you're getting all your work.
I prioritized the college football and then eventually did the schoolwork.
No, it was very impressive. Do you? What's your style? Are you more like Mel Kiper? Are you more like Tom McShay? Who do you model your mock after?
Definitely not Mel Kiper. I'll say that. He had a bunch of different things. Me being a Lions fan, he had them taking Derek Brown. I wasn't a big fan of that, so I strayed away from him. I don't really know. I kind of look at team needs because the first round is a big hole filler because those guys are going to play the first year. So I looked at team needs. I looked at everybody's roster and saw the holes, and I basically picked the best player available that would fit the coach's scheme and the hole on what that team needed.
So what was the most enjoyable thing about putting it all together?
Really watching the finished product, to be honest. It was a lot of hard work, and then I got to sit back and watch it, and I impressed myself. So.
I was impressed, Mr. Sugerman.
Absolutely. I think I called you right away, Mr. Eden, and said, hey, this is awesome. We need to do a recap. I'm in, you're in. I do love that we're all sitting here in Cincinnati. You're representing the Packers.
Yeah.
I'm representing my Cleveland Browns, and, Nick's sporting the Detroit Lions there. But I think we all got a little love for the Bengals. But I'm excited to talk to draft. With no live sports on, having that on last night was a refreshing, thing to watch on TV. And just knowing we were going to have this today, I was pretty excited and kind of probably clued in a little more than I was to the whole draft as a whole, rather than just what the Browns-Bengals were doing. So
I paid a little bit more attention to it too. It was funny. I was telling the people before you jumped on, Nick, that I watched up through round 25 or the pick 25, and I went to bed because I was tired. I was it was 11:30. I went to bed. So I didn't see that 26th pick, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit.
26.
I told my wife, I said, we went to bed probably right before literally they came on to announce the 26th pick was traded. So that was a surprise for me this morning. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But right now, what was that experience like for you watching the draft last night, Nick? I know you've watched many drafts before. This was a little bit different since it wasn't in Vegas with everything going on. What was it like for you to watch the draft?
It was interesting. I'm sure a lot of people noticed that I feel like there was more time in between picks because I feel like the NFL was kind of dragging it out a little bit. But I mean, it was really interesting seeing all the players at their houses and not like with the crowds to cheer them on or whatever. You know, it was definitely different. We gotta look into Roger Goodell's kind of home life, which was kind of funny to me.
You gotta love that he still embraced the booing. You know, even from his own basement, they embrace that aspect. But on that point too, I thought it was quite interesting just seeing the disparity between, you know, where they're working out of their houses, and you saw this personal impact, like kids, parents, you know, their wives were involved in drafting these teams, and you know, they're probably all at home while dad's away for a whole week preparing for this, and now they're sitting there on his lap and, you know, over his shoulder as they're making these, you know, crucial decisions for a franchise. It was kind of intimate setting to do a draft. I actually preferred that, I think.
I mean, yeah, that was really cool to see. I think a great example of that would be Mike Vrabel. Do you remember what, like, they had the Frozone costume on and whatever the other guy was on the right, but it was just, I'm assuming those were his kids, but it was just really funny. You know,
if not,
really
it was
good
some random people who were holding him up in his, you know, house or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know who it was, but there was one where they hadn't cut to the camera yet. It was just in the background. You could see the video, and it was a GM or somebody hugging his two kids. It was like a son and daughter maybe. And I just thought, I don't know, that was a pretty cool moment. I thought it was kind of neat. Like you said, Mr. Sugerman, you probably would never see that anytime else, you know. So it was just kind of cool. And Jerry Jones's yacht.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Would you expect anything less out of Jerry? You know,
True.
I mean, what, he was just worried that there was, you know, power outage or something. So he went to, you know, his yacht.
To his yacht, yeah.
I heard he helped out the Salvation Army, though. Supposedly they had an uptick in donations because of their logo in the background.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, it was real neat. So let's talk about some of you know, the ups, the downs, the sleepers, the strange things that happened. So you want to start us off there, Mr. Eden?
Yeah, Nick. What's out of the picks? So you say you called 10 out of the 13. Which ones of
10 out of
those
the first 13
were your best ones that you had there? A couple were probably gimmies.
Yeah,
which ones are you really proud of?
I mean, the one I was proud of was probably CJ Henderson, the cornerback out of Florida, to the Jaguars. He is not in any way a top 10 pick, but I predicted that he went top 10 because I knew the Jaguars were going to be desperate for a corner. And instead of trading back, they reached and took a corner. So I was pretty proud that I got that down.
Yeah, at that point, speaking of corners, you know, the first one off the board went to your Detroit Lions, you know, and the next one after that didn't go until 16. So do you think it was worth the reach at that point?
I mean, I do not. Just like Okudah was, there's probably, if you rank all of the corners, there was Okudah, and then there was a huge gap, and then it was CJ Henderson. So I feel like they could have traded back to like 16 or somewhere in that range, like the middle of the first round, gotten probably like a second round pick, and then they would still be able to take their guy.
Yeah, Nick, we talked about that earlier. A lot of times in those first, you know, 10, 15 picks, there is a lot of movement trade-wise. There was not many yesterday. Do you think that had to do with the war rooms per se not being there and just the communication aspect? Because there were an uptick towards the end of the round and middle round there, but at the beginning, a lot of people just stayed still, it looks like.
I mean, yeah, I definitely think that was part of it. You know, being scared of the technology and all the flaws that technology can have, and then them not being with all the war room people. But also I think that the reason that Miami or the Chargers didn't trade up is because they each liked their guy and they weren't scared of anybody in front of them taking him. So like Miami liked Tua and the Chargers liked Herbert, so they didn't have to trade up, which was unfortunate for my Lions, but it's just how it happened.
Talking about Okudah, do you think he fits right in with Detroit? Is he an immediate starter, or do you think he'll sit the bench for a little bit?
I mean, I think they're definitely, if he doesn't turn out to be the Okuda that he is, they're definitely still going to play him. But I'm really confident in him. He's just the guy that Matt Patricia likes on his defense. He can mimic the receivers' routes. He can follow them, and he's just an overall good player.
So you mentioned college football. You've got into that. You're watching that a lot. Pretty historic last night. The first three picks all played under the Ohio State Buckeyes banner. Obviously, as we know, Burrow, led LSU to championship this year, but definitely spent a lot of his time at Ohio State under Urban Meyer, recruited by him. What are your thoughts on OSU going 1, 2, 3 off the board, which is pretty unique and first time ever?
I mean, that's really cool for all the Buckeye fans out there. I'm not going to say that they should be claiming Joe Burrow because he really did not develop at Ohio State, but I'll give you, the little time that he was there.
He did say that himself last year, though, because I think we were talking about Kuiper had him as a 6th round, prospect, and he said it was probably deserved before this year. He goes, things just clicked and that. So I will not argue with your point on that one.
Yeah, I liked how they had Ryan Day and did a little interview with him talking about it. I mean, I think for him, what a thing for his program to be, put front and center like that and have 3 guys who went to the school, be drafted in those first 3 spots. And Chase Young, Chase Young is going to be, I think, outstanding. I think it's a shame really that the Bengals had to get a quarterback because I think he's going to be one of the guys that we're going to be hearing about for a long, long time.
Absolutely. So, and one more thing before we get to that pick number 26, which obviously with your background there is pretty intriguing to you. A lot of offensive tackles. A lot of offensive tackles in the early on. You had some thoughts going into this on who the best. Obviously, when you're looking at the board here, number 3, Andrew Thomas went off the board. You had him going with a trade in your mock draft to the Cleveland Browns at 15. But then, there's a little run of them with Jedrick to the Browns, Mekhi Becton also going number 11, and Tristan Wirfs going 13. Who's the best one out there?
Well, my favorite was Tristan Wirfs from Iowa. He ended up being the 4th offensive tackle taken, but he was my favorite just because of his size and his power. But clearly, I did not rank them as the same as the NFL GMs as Gettleman from New York, obviously Thomas the best because took him 4th overall, which is insane.
That is. As a Browns fan, obviously, I'm excited. We've done a lot to the offensive line in the offseason to really protect, Mr. Mayfield to see if he is the real deal, with which no one really knows yet. But he's got all the pieces to the puzzle now around him that if he's the real deal, it should show off. But I thought it was interesting. There was a little run in offensive tackles there from 10 to 13. But each one of them has their unique qualities that I think each team was kind of looking for, and I think that's where that goes. But I mean, even when you were in your mock draft, you knew that the Jets wanted an offensive tackle, and you actually hit back then right on with that one. But it's basically give or take, but big class of offensive tackles. And man, those kids are big. They are strong. They're fast. I'm listening to their 40s times going, you're 340 pounds. There's no reason you should be running that fast. And if any of them would be chasing me down, I would just stop and give up. So
they can move. They can move. Now talk about a little bit about any misses that you were like, ooh, man, I was way off.
Well, so right here, I'm going to talk about the Raiders at 19, Damon Arnett. I won't say it's necessarily a miss because he is a good corner, but he should not have been taken in the first round. He was a 2nd round talent at best. I feel like that was a huge reach. I know we just talked about offensive tackles. Andrew Thomas at 4, that was a bit of a reach. I think they could have, if they found somebody that could have traded back, I'm sure they should have. So, and then my last one, I already talked about CJ Henderson. So there you go.
Yeah, I also was a little surprised of Arnett going that high up in the draft. ESPN had him ranked as their number 7th cornerback, and he's going 19 overall. So it's a reach. There's definitely the need there for the Raiders, but they've also never been known to not splash and go after some, do things a little differently than everyone else. And it's Vegas, we'll see what happens there. So.
Exactly.
Were you surprised about Isaiah Simmons?
Oh, I was very surprised about Isaiah Simmons. I mean, so originally I had the Giants taking him, and then they said they wanted to go tackle. So I figured that the Panthers would jump all over Simmons, but I'm not going to say that they panicked and took Derek Brown, but I'm sure they assumed Simmons would be gone by then. And they figured that Derek Brown was their guy. They needed a defensive tackle. And so they took their guy instead of panicking and taking Simmons. So,
yeah, I think the Cardinals really lucked out with Simmons here. I think he's going to be a really good player for them. Wide receivers, coming in, you had Ruggs, Judy. I thought Judy was a better player than Ruggs, but Ruggs went first, and then you had a little bit of a run, Judy, and then CeeDee Lamb. Out of those 3 guys, if you had to pick today, who do you think has the best career?
Just based off of where they landed, I'm going to say Jerry Jeudy. Drew Lock is a very underrated quarterback. I like him a lot. Him and Cortland Sutton next to each other are going to be really good. Henry Ruggs is pretty good too. The only problem is his quarterback is still Derek Carr. So that he maybe that changes today, but you never know. And then CeeDee Lamb, he does have Dak, but he's going to be the 3rd receiver on that team for at least this year. And so he won't get off to as hot a start as Jerry Jeudy. And
then in the later picks, we had a couple more wide receivers come off the board. Justin Jefferson, LSU, Kenneth to the Vikings, one of our rivals.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jalen Reagor to the Eagles from TCU, the speedster. And then things got a little interesting. Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State to 49ers. So then you have that 26 pick that we've kind of been alluding to here. The Green Bay Packers traded up, and they grabbed Jordan Love. What did you think about the Packers' move to get Jordan Love? And I'll give you my take. And Mr. Sugerman, I'd like to hear yours too.
Well, as a Lions fan, my initial reaction was to laugh. I thought it was funny because, I mean, from what I've seen, Rodgers is declining, but what fixes a declining quarterback is drafting good wide receivers to make him better. They elected not to do that, and they took another QB. Jordan Love, I think, is a really solid option in the NFL. He's like he's kind of like a Patrick Mahomes. He's not as good, and the accuracy's not there, but you can definitely see glimpses of Patrick Mahomes in Jordan Love. So I think it was an overall good pick. You just got to get the rest that you can out of Rodgers, and then Jordan Love.
Yeah, and I guess my thought on it is, you look at history. History repeats itself. Back when Brett Favre was a quarterback, they once drafted a young gem in Aaron Rodgers to sit under him and, see what happened. And I wonder, to go along with what Nick said, is if this is to light a fire and saying, this is still your team, Mr. Rodgers, but hey, we've got a stud who's going to develop, who's going to spend some time here, and he's going to be good. I think we can all look at that. I do think Jordan Love, up to get him, they obviously were afraid that he was not going to be on the board much longer. So, but I don't think we'll know the true value of the pick for at least 2 years, maybe even longer, and it could come in one of these situations that he's sitting there and learning, and maybe you can get him in on different series and things like that to get him integrated into the new NFL where, that's more typical these days where you're letting a second quarterback play. But he's by clear the fourth quarterback in this draft, and they wanted a quarterback, so they got him. But I'll be interested to see what they do next round and see if they're getting those wide receivers that they need.
Yeah, I won't lie. I was pretty shocked too. And then I thought about what happened, when they drafted Rodgers, when Favre was still around. And Favre was getting old. Rodgers is a year older than Favre was at that time. Clearly he's declining. I still think he can play. He's still elite, I think. But what worries me just a little bit is Brett Favre didn't like Aaron Rodgers coming in. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to return the favor to Jordan Love. I think he's going to be good to him. I don't know if he's necessarily going to nurture him. I think it's going to light a fire up underneath of him. I think he's going to perform a little bit better this year. Yeah. I'm a little worried about Jordan Love with the last season that he had. He wasn't as good. I think he's got really good intangible skills. But I'm worried about the season that he had this year. He threw a lot of interceptions. So hopefully Rodgers will groom him. And hopefully I'm trusting the process in this. I don't think they lost a lot to trade up. If I think they knew something, I'm just going with that. I don't think they gave up a lot. They gave up a 4th-round pick. I think that's fine. But I'm going to trust the pick. A lot of people in Packers Nation are a little upset about it. I'm going to trust it because I think Brian Gutekunst knows what he's doing. I think Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers have a good relationship. I think they're going to be fine. I think Jordan Love will be the next quarterback for the Green Bay Packers as long as he's willing to ride this out. It could end up ugly. I'm not going to say it might not end up ugly, but we all know, good things come to an end, and I think Aaron Rodgers' time in Green Bay probably will be coming to an end, and hopefully either he'll retire or ride off into the sunset on another.
There you go. All right, final words. All right, final thoughts, I should say. Who are the Cincinnati Bengals? Because ultimately, our reach here is Cincinnati. What are the Bengals doing with the next pick in the second round, the first pick of the second round?
All right, so obviously they cleared up the cornerback need. They do not need a quarterback anymore. They have Joe Burrow. So I think their top needs are a pass rusher, an edge rusher, a guard, an offensive guard, right or left, either one, and then linebacker. So with who's left on the board, I have them taking the Penn State edge rusher in the second round, Yetur Gross-Matos. I think that's how you say it. I really don't know. But he's big, he's fast. He's one of those big edge rushers, like you said. He's got length, and he knows what he's doing. So he's gonna be a good player, either if the Bengals take him or someone else takes him. But that's the route I think they go.
All right, Mr. Eden, what are you thinking?
I don't know. I like the safety. I like the safety out of Alabama. I think they're going to go after him. I think they're going to go after McKinney. Or Ezra Cleveland from Boise State is out there, an offensive lineman. I think their offensive line has been unstable. They definitely need some guys. They lost some guys last year. I think it'd be smart just to take one of the best offensive linemen off the board.
I don't disagree with either of you. I think those are both, very good, very good ideas. I think, we talked about it. I think they're going with T. Higgins from Clemson. I think they're going to go after the wide receiver, try and bring in some help here. And, hey, you've got your quarterback of the future now. Let's give him someone to throw to. And, we'll see. But if not, I was looking at Ezra Cleveland as well from Boise State as the offensive tackle. That's another way to protect your franchise quarterback. So I do think they're going to stick on the offensive side of the ball, but we'll see what happens. So final thoughts, Mr. Eden, on round 1, round 2. What are you leaving us with?
Final thoughts. I think the Bengals got their guy with Burrow. I think he's legit. I think he's going to be, and I wanted to ask Nick what he thinks. I think he will end up being an MVP one of these years. I think he's got that type of talent. I don't think he'll win a Super Bowl. I want to know what Nick thinks about that. But I do think he will win an NFL MVP before he's done in Cincinnati or before he's done with his career.
Nick?
That is a bold statement right there. I'm gonna be that bold. I think Burrow will have a solid career. I think he'll have he'll have some playoff runs. I don't know about a Super Bowl. Kind of depends on what the Bengals do with this next draft and their next few years. But I still think that Tua is the best QB in this draft. Barring any injuries, I feel like Tua has a better career than Burrow, but they both could be legends that we remember forever. So,
and I'm going to leave you with my hot take. He's overrated. I truly believe, and I'm not saying I do think he's got talent. I think he's got skill. I think he's got a chance to be an elite quarterback. I think we're really overlooking that he's playing for the Cincinnati Bengals and playing for a professional football team in the state of Ohio. As a Browns fan, I feel comfortable saying that. I think we're in the same positions. I hope Joe Burrow has every opportunity to succeed in this league. But until structurally these franchises change, I don't know if you'll see an MVP type season out of a Joe Burrow with the current structure of the Browns or Bengals, since I don't want all these Bengals fans to hate me. I'm going with both there. So I think he's got the potential to be as good as you think, Mr. Eden, but I don't see it happening within his playing career. And we might have to wait 2 years to find out because we might not have football in the fall. So,
oh, don't say that.
Let's hope for the best, and that's why I'm going with it. I'm hoping for the best. I think Cincinnati deserves it. They've been waiting for a long, long time. And I can't help but think, if he is a bust, how devastating that would be to Bengals fans. So the best thing I can say is that he's going to at least get an MVP, and I think he's going to be happy here. I think Bengals fans are going to welcome him with open arms. They already have. There's billboards up on 75. But I think he's going to have a good career in Cincinnati. Nick, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing the video. Thanks for inspiring us to do this today. Any final thoughts or words before we depart here?
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed my time.
Awesome.
And all I have to say is Jeff Gladney, Defensive Rookie of the Year.
There you go.
There we go.
And just so we're aware, before all these Bengals fans hate me, I want Joe Burrows to do well. I want Cincinnati to succeed. I just, in my heart of hearts, don't see it happening. But I'm rooting for you, all right? I'm rooting for you. So, hey, it's been fun, everyone. Take it easy. We'll be back with a new edition of, on
whatever you decide to call this.
Whatever the name was.
Beyond the podcast with Mr. Sugerman, Mr. Eden.
Yeah,
Nick, thank you.
Thank you, Nick, for joining us, and we'll see what happens on the rest.
Enjoy the rest of the draft.
Have a great one,
gentlemen.
Bye.